here today with Stan Smith, a principal at Deloitte and the director of the Next Generation Initiatives. Hi, Stan.
Hello.
I'd like to understand a little bit about your background and how you've come to be a director at Deloitte's of a very interesting initiative of the Next Generation Initiatives.
Well, I've been in the business world about 35 years. I started out as an auditor with one of our competitors,
right,
and moved into human resources rather soon after I had been an auditor for a while. Worked for an energy company and then worked with another competitor for a number of years in senior roles, particularly being in charge of their compensation programs as well as being an advisor to their leader of one of their divisions. When I came to Deloitte as a principal in 1998, I was the director of human resources for our tax division. And then an interesting thing happened after 2 years in that. I was asked to come into the national office to work on our compensation program because I'd been quite successful at our competitors.
Right.
And then there was an offhanded comment made by our then CEO, Bill Perrett. He said to my boss, he said, you know, I have 6 kids and there's something going on where it's more than me being old and them being young. So ask Stan to kind of look into that, what he called the value proposition. And that was it. It was an offhanded remark,
right,
and clearly meant for me to work after hours on this.
So during your time in this initiative, you've obviously conducted a lot of research in the differences between generations.
Mm-hmm.
I'm particularly interested in how what you've learned there can help leaders today, especially in a tough economy, achieve what I think is the holy grail of leadership, which is fellowship. We talked earlier, it's fantastic to lead, but if no one follows you, then you are really, it's a very small team. What are, in your opinion, some of the key learnings from your research that can be applied to leaders today in a troubled economy to be more effective leaders of people that want to follow them?
I think that's a very good question, and actually it's a simple answer, but the simple answer is very difficult to do. Transparency is the word.
Right.
Transparency has a very specific meaning with these young people. It means honesty, straightforwardness, being realistic, and being positive. Now, what that means, we've learned, and it's cross-cultural. We've just done some work in China and India. Same factors come up. Young people, probably for reasons we can speculate, technology and what have you, really expect senior leaders to show them respect by giving them the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And when they hear the truth, they don't necessarily have to agree with it, but they feel like someone's playing straight with them, and they are more willing to follow.
Right. Given the statistic you mentioned to me earlier that I think 80% of young employees today have a disrespect or a skepticism of business leaders.
Well, yeah.
How, in that environment, even if I offer transparency, what other things do I need to do to effectively create a sense of fellowship in this generation?
Well, I think that, let me mention where that statistic is. We ask young people, in this case teenagers, to react to the following statement. With the mess that we have in the economy, I'm beginning to doubt the competency of adult leaders.
Right.
And over 80% strongly agreed with that or agreed with it. Now, at the same time, and this is based on other real conversations with young people, they realize that they're not necessarily ready to be leaders themselves. And so where's the opportunity? The opportunity is that 84% of the young people in this particular survey said they wanted anyone, an adult, to explain to them sort of what they didn't know about the economy and how this thing had happened, and give them some sense of hope, even if the hope is sometimes a bit ephemeral. They're looking for just straight talk. And I've capitalized, sort of pulled it together, or categorized it into 4 A's that leaders who want to be followed, or as I call it, if you want to be a leader worth following, follow these 4 things. One is awareness that you don't know what you don't know. And people pretty soon see whether you're faking it or whether you really have knowledge in that. Another is an open mind. Another is an active listener and a lifelong learner. Mm-hmm. I think that with that kind of, you might say, humility going along with your leadership, people will say, that's someone I want to follow. That's someone who's worth following.
Mm-hmm. With the generation of the, well, what I refer to as the MySpace generation, I guess that's a subset of the Gen Y, Gen X. MySpace and Facebook has really got our younger employees very used to communicating with small or large numbers of friends very quickly and very transparently. How have you found that type of expectation of a communication is impacting the way these people believe they should be able to communicate within the workforce and within the workplace?
I think that's one that's evolving. I think that we make it clear that as a public accounting firm, a professional services firm, we have certain privileged communications, things that cannot go out to the world, and we spend a fair amount of time helping people understand that.
Right.
And I think that to the large point they do that, but there's always the fact that they are not used to boundaries at all. You can go out on the internet and go anywhere and what have you, and this is one that you have to manage on a case-by-case basis. But keep reminding them that we're an organization that cannot let everything hang out, cannot let everybody know what our business is, and that they themselves need to keep a sense of independence in their dealings, particularly with people who work with clients or potential clients.
Do you find that the expectation of being able to communicate with people irrespective of position, title, status in their social lives changes the way, or has changed the way that your staff communicate within the business themselves, and that they expect to be able to communicate across the hierarchy of Deloitte and your customers, perhaps in ways that older generations wouldn't do?
Well, clearly they go to the top.
Right.
And the reason they go to the top, they've told me, is that they know that the people in between are simply listening to the person above them. So let's go to the top. And they also feel this way because their parents, in many cases, have been professionals, been business people, and they know where the decisions come from.
Right.
We have a generation that a substantial portion of them are advised by parents, in my mind, who didn't like the way they were treated in business. They've warned their kids about taking orders from order takers, and this is actually a paraphrase of a couple of parents that I've talked to, what they told their kids.
Right.
So we have kids who are skeptical of business to start with, who have parents who say, listen, don't let anyone pull the wool over your eyes. You go to the top when you have a question. And that was one of the things I think I convinced our leadership that they really needed to reach out from the very top, because just filtering information down through the ranks, who knew whether it would get to people or whether they'd buy it anyway.
Was there resistance within the middle management layer then to that approach?
Oh, there always is.
Right.
But as you know, middle management is always most problematic, because they're caught in between the, in this case, the boomers who see the millennials as their children, and the millennials who don't want to bother with the Xers who are in between and go right to the boomers.
Right. Right. This has come up a few times in our conversations already, Stan, is the willingness of Deloitte to launch fairly costly initiatives in response to a change in environment, in response to data, but without a clear return on investment. And I think we find today in many parts of commercial enterprise a reluctance to spend money on initiatives where there's not a proven return on investment or a clear return on investment. I know personally in the area of social media and customer communities, which are a burgeoning business today, or burgeoning area, there's a reluctance on many even customer-facing businesses about a reluctance to accept and to develop those initiatives because there's no proven, clear return on investment. So Deloitte has done these social initiatives around the ones we talked about, the Women's Initiative, the Next Generation initiatives. It seems a data-led decision to act, but not a clear return on that investment. Can you talk a little bit about the culture that makes it possible and the thinking that goes behind those decisions?
That is a very good question, because what we're faced with is actually a traditional structure that should have been an impediment but isn't. What I mean by that is we have invited young people into our firms for years, saying stay 2 or 3 years, get your CPA, go somewhere else, that's all right. That's how we make money. We keep running people through there and having some leverage. But that same thing made it easier for these initiatives, because if we're trying to keep just one more year, we have to deal with what is going to, at their point in life, make it attractive for just one more year.
Right.
Therefore, many of the things that we've had to do might have been more difficult in an organization that appeared to have a more fluid structure. But here, to keep someone another maybe 3 years to 4 years, we have to have and do some flexibility that we might not otherwise have had, because that's what we're trying to do. And then our belief is that people will come, the best people who are really suited to our environment will stay.
Right.
Now the other piece is that I think over 80% of our people are 35 or under. So it gives an urgency to having to deal with whatever's on their mind. And if they happen to be a generation that's technologically capable and have different views about when to work and how to work, we don't have a choice, even if we want to keep them a year, but to adapt.
And that decision the realization that you don't have a choice but to accept that different approach to work, as opposed to forcing the traditional model on that workforce, seems to be a very key factor in Deloitte's success in that area.
I would say it is, and that's where we probably are, as I said, the unique way that our profession operates is probably an ally, not a hindrance.
Right, right. Well, thank you, Stan. It's been a pleasure talking with you today. We've covered a lot of information following your research in the last few years and as Director of Next Generation Initiatives. As all of us in business today, especially our generation, my generation, find we're working increasingly with younger people in the workforce, the decision we've talked about having to accept the way they work as opposed to trying to enforce our model on them, is I think something we can all do a better job of. Deloitte's financial success you seem to attribute directly to many of these initiatives, and I thank you for your time.
My pleasure, David. Thank you.